Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson today. We're listening to Her Husband Sabotaged Her Parachute. Okay, I remember this one, but every time I hear it over and over, there's just little things that I pick up on. So if it's a repeat, forgive me. Okay.
3 years ago, mother of two, Victoria Sears, took her 2,650th parachute jump. A gift from her husband, Emil. But her chute catastrophically failed, and she hit the ground, causing life-threatening injuries.
My first initial thought was she was going to be dead.
Detectives eventually discovered the awful truth. A former army sergeant has been jailed for at least 18 years for trying to murder his wife by tampering with her parachute. Shockingly, the police learned her husband had tried to kill her before.
6 days before the parachute incident, Victoria had smelt gas.
This is one of the most unusual murder plots ever heard here at Winchester Crown Court.
Now, with exclusive access to unseen home movies, over 10 hours of police interviews, thousands of Emil's intimate text messages to other women. To be with you, I would do anything. Wow. And interviewing key people, including his children and ex-partners, speaking on camera for the first time.
He is a psychopath and a pathological liar.
This film tells the story behind the investigation, revealing the sordid truth of Emil's double life. So that is what a sinister looks like. This is the extraordinary story of the parachute murder plot.
It's such a massive thing to try and get your head around and to accept that he might want to try and kill me but also harm the children.
Just took this woman and controlled her with evil in what he does. In my 18 years of policing experience, I've never had a case quite like it.
Parachute murder plot. Okay.
It's 4 p.m. Skydive instructor Victoria Sears is preparing to make her first jump in over a year. The day is a special treat arranged by her husband Emil to celebrate the recent birth of their second child.
You have two babies and wonder why he wanted to kill you? Ah.
Parachutist James Rankin jumped with Victoria that day. He's never spoken before about what happened.
It was actually myself, another guy, Victoria, last on the plane. And I said to Victoria, I'm a little bit nervous, the altitude's quite low. So she sort of said to me, head up, positive, you're getting the joy, you'll be fine. I left the plane, deployed my parachute, started to fly. And then I watched Vicky exit the aircraft, and then when the main came out, it was malfunction. So the chief cut away, and then when I saw the reserve come out, they didn't appear to be fully attached. So she was going into a very, very fast spin, with her legs lifting up almost her head height.
Could you see that she was fighting to keep control?
Yeah, she was holding on to the risers, fighting the canopy. She had no control of the parachute whatsoever. She was above me and then she fell straight past me.
At 4:27 p.m., Victoria hit the ground after falling 4,000 feet from the sky. You must have been thinking she's probably dead.
Yeah, that was my first thought. She was drifting in and out of consciousness. Yeah. It's quite an experience.
It's a big metallic bang, everything went black. I don't know if that's when I hit the ground or if I passed out because of the force.
As the details of her case became public 3 years later, it gripped the nation.
But immediate first check, arms and legs work, so my spine's in one piece. I didn't feel any pain.
Victoria had broken her pelvis and ribs, fractured her spine in 4 places, and suffered a collapsed lung, but miraculously survived by the sheer luck of landing in freshly ploughed ground. Just hours after the fall, the first suspicions were raised, and the Parachute Club inspected Victoria's kit.
Let's just have a look in the line.
In this exclusive footage, their initial examination suggested this was not an accident.
I've never seen anything like that before. But that can't have been there when she... No, it wasn't there when she deployed. I think that... I don't know.
The next day, the club called the local police.
So if we come through, I've got a laptop that has the filming that they had done.
Because you can imagine that would have just been flattened out, slider on it. That makes it more likely that it's been tampered with.
If the Parachute Club hadn't brought all this to your attention, could it have just gone down as an accident and Emil would have got away with it?
It could have, potentially. He would have got away with it.
The police sent Victoria's parachute away for inspection by the British Parachute Association, but had no further leads. Then, 5 days after the fall, a close friend of Victoria, called DC Maddie Henner.
She started to tell me about some issues that Victoria had discussed with her about her marriage, and their relationship is not as healthy as it perhaps should be.
So she clearly had suspicions that Emil might have tried to kill his wife. I mean, why else would you ring the police? That's a big thing to do.
Yeah. It moved on very quickly from there.
South African-born Emil Siliers had always enjoyed an active lifestyle. He joined the British Army in 2004 and became a physical training instructor. In 2010, he met Victoria, who was working in the army as a physiotherapist. They both shared a passion for adrenaline sports. Very quickly, their relationship blossomed. In 2011, they tied the knot in a lavish ceremony in Cape Town, South Africa. But as the police would discover, their marriage was far from a fairy tale. Four weeks after the jump, Victoria was recovering from her injuries when the results of the British Parachute Association's report were delivered to the investigating officers.
The BPA say there is no mechanical reason I can give you for this parachute fade. So it's either tampering by parachutists themselves or a third party. So at that point, there is a criminal investigation here now.
The evidence is still kept under lock and key here at Marlborough Police Station.
So this is the main parachute. So the main parachute would have been about this big, and he had wrapped the lines around it.
So it couldn't fully inflate.
It couldn't inflate properly.
And then she goes for this. This is the only thing that's going to save her.
The reserve parachute, but only half of it goes up because it's like a rucksack, and then you've got 2 lines either side, the risers, and they come up and they attach to the lines by slings. 2 of them had been removed.
According to protocol, every detail of the parachute should have been carefully checked before the jump. Victoria's gear had been given the all clear by Emil, even though it later became clear that the slinks that opened the reserve chute were missing. On Tuesday, the 28th of April, DC Henner headed to Gibraltar Barracks in Hampshire to bring Emil in for questioning.
I said to him, I'm arresting you on the suspicion of attempting to try and murder your wife. And he just sat there and said nothing. And I can remember saying to him, do you understand what I'm saying to you? Yes, yes. And he said, I'm very unhappy that you arrested me in front of my subordinates. And I was completely taken aback by the lack of reaction. So the first interview lasted about 6 hours. And he talked. He talked for the whole time.
Tell me about your relationship with Victoria.
It's not a marriage that I would want to be in anymore. I can see myself being in a marriage in 10, 15 years' time.
This was something really unusual to what we'd usually expect. Most of the time, they go no comment or they won't say very much, but he talked and talked and talked.
I've got my high sex drive. My wife, Victoria, she's got a very low sex drive. We struggle to have sex more than twice a week. Took about his sexual encounters and women he was seeing, about his girlfriend. It was quite incredible, really. And he's like, blimey, it was just all the stuff that we didn't actually know or ask him about. He just volunteered. I met a girl. Definitely, it was just friendship to start with, and then it got a little bit more serious.
He admitted he was having an affair.
And did you get the impression that he was worried at all?
No, he never protested his innocence. He never said, I didn't do it.
Didn't he?
No.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Emil's candid revelations handed the police a clear motive. But there was insufficient evidence to tie him to the crime itself. He was released on bail, but with one key condition. He could not return to the home he shared with Victoria and their small children.
As a police detective, I can't just allow him to walk back into the house when he's volunteered that information to me. Because if he is guilty, how do I protect her? The only way I can really protect her is to keep him away from her. And this is where things start to get sort of tricky. She's at home in a body brace, got a 5-week-old baby, got a 3-year-old child. She needs physical, practical help.
She wanted to know why. Why can't my husband come home? I need him. Why can't he come home?
She's like, you're ruining my life. We haven't. Your husband's potentially trying to kill you. And yet you don't want anything investigated.
But the police needed Victoria's cooperation if they were to build a case against her husband.
She needs to know. She's the key to this. What I want is to tell her enough for her to understand the danger she's in and support the investigation and tell me exactly what's happened. Silly little things you remember, so we go in, we take our shoes off. But her mum and dad have come down to help out physically with the children. They're still up, running around.
He told her that he had a girlfriend that he was serious about, that he was intending to leave her, and that he had denied paternity of their son.
That can't have been an easy conversation. Here she's in a full body brace with a tiny baby and another child. How did she respond to that?
She was utterly distraught.
Cried, screamed, really, it just cut. You could see it physically cut her to the core. At that moment was probably the only time I ever saw her let her guard slip and the real Vicky step through.
At the end of the meeting, Victoria dropped a bombshell that would have far-reaching consequences.
And we said, we're going to leave. Is there anything you want to tell us? And she goes, well, you better know about the gas leak. What gas leak?
To the outside world, Emil and Victoria Cilliers were a happy couple who lived life to the full. But now he was suspected of sabotaging his wife's parachute. And she had just told the police of a gas leak 6 days earlier that could have killed her and their young children while Emil was away at bat.
Victoria had got up, gone downstairs to the kitchen and smelt gas. So she had messaged Emil.
Victoria had found blood by the pipe, and it appeared to have been tampered with.
He said, no, I haven't touched it.
Gas leaks can happen naturally, but a gas leak in a new house and a week later parachute accident. We've now got 2 potential attempted murders to investigate.
The police inspected Victoria's gas pipes and sent them for forensic analysis. But despite the obvious threat, the case was being investigated by a team of just 3 officers. So why was it so small?
To be quite brutal, because she didn't die, it remained with CID.
So you had to do all the work?
Yes, alongside our day jobs.
This wasn't the main focus of your work?
No.
I don't think many people thought we had a case. People kind of like, yeah, but you're never going to prove it, are you?
To help convict Emil, the team needed to build an accurate profile of him.
Hi, Nicoline, hi. Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Thanks so much for seeing me.
Nicoline Shepherd was Emil's first serious girlfriend in South Africa. They got together when she was 13 and he was 16, and would stay together for the next 7 years.
He's got a lovely smile, hasn't he? I can see that.
I thought I was older. I thought I was ready for life, you know, settled down at the age of 30. It just had a way of pulling you in, and all the girls liked it.
Emil would put on lavish displays of affection.
So he could be very charming.
Absolutely, yeah. He always puts in a great amount of effort. When he's in the moment with you, you're the best thing in the world. You're the only person in the world. I think that's part of his charm. You forgive the bad things because you remember these good things, and the good things are so good that you manage to forgive the bad.
Throughout their 7-year relationship, Emil was compulsively unfaithful.
It's the Emil spell. You think you're the only woman in the world, when really there's 3 or 4 more, but you're blissfully happy, so you just really don't see the signs.
Shortly after their daughter Celine was born, Emil moved to the UK looking for work.
It's very sweet of the baby.
Yeah.
He promised to return, but instead settled down with another woman. His mother gave Nicoline the bad news.
His mum took me out for lunch, and then she said, I'm sorry to have to tell you, but he's got married. You're going to have to move on. And my heart literally fell through me. I was like, what? How? What? We were still in a relationship as far as I was concerned.
Emil's behaviour was also devastating for his children. His eldest daughter, Celine, has never spoken on camera before.
I always remember he loved me so much, or at least I thought so, and he was so sensitive. And then I really didn't understand why someone who I thought, like, I was their world, I was their favourite person, and he just disappeared. And probably the most selfish thing he's done is not being able to at least apologise for the hurt he's caused and for leaving us all behind in his trail of dust. You know, it was just...
That's tough.
And, yeah.
In September 2015, Emil was brought to Swindon Police Station for a second interview and asked to explain the evidence that was mounting against him.
He turns up in a t-shirt, shorts and flip-flops. Mr. Casual walks in. It's just that air of arrogance. There's nothing here to fear.
You went to get Victoria a parachute?
Yes.
Tell me about the checks you did.
It's just standard checks, as you should do as a parachutist.
Okay, well tell me what those standard checks are. I don't know, I don't parachute.
Okay, I'm sure you can investigate and answer the right questions to the right people in regards to checking a parachute.
Okay, I'm asking you,
I can't remember.
because you obviously did the checks.
I would just do the standard checks.
What are those standard checks?
Check if there's a green in the window, check the risers on the side.
Police wanted to know more about Emil's lover, Stephanie Goller. They'd met 5 months before the parachute jump, and he previously told the police he'd been planning to leave his wife for her.
When I asked him about Stephanie Goller,
His girlfriend?
he became very upset.
What, tearful?
Yes.
Why?
Because they were no longer together. Tell me where you see your relationship with her going.
That feels like very poor me. Got a prison blanket, put it over his shoulders.
Did you get the sense in the interviews he was trying to manipulate you?
Yes. I think it was a bit of an act to show a compassionate side, to show himself to be human.
Now that's interesting because he'd not been remotely tearful about Victoria nearly dying, being in a body brace, struggling to cope with her children.
No.
But he had been tearful about his girlfriend.
Yes. You start to realise that we have the possible motive.
Emil tried to present himself as a victim who had no hope of being with a woman he loved. But 2 years' worth of phone and computer records would reveal a different story.
It's a huge quantity. It is a huge quantity. Over 32,000 WhatsApp messages just between Emil and Stephanie Goller.
Emil said to Stephanie Goller, "I love you." Emil's texts appear to confirm that he planned to be free to enjoy a relationship with Stephanie after the parachute jump in April. Emil to Stephanie, from April onwards I could do random and spontaneous.
So that's the 7th of January. Parachute incident was on the 5th of April.
So in January, he was planning something for April. I mean, what else can you conclude?
Yeah, it would appear so.
Wow. Look at that. To be with you, I would do anything. But Emil's texts also revealed that his love for Stephanie wasn't quite what it seemed.
And what's this? Emil
To an
to an escort. 1 hour bareback for £100, and can I film it?
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
Emil's personality was far darker than it first appeared. The search for witnesses led police into the seedy world of Salisbury's sex clubs, where Emil was a frequent visitor. On the face of it, he was very respectable and lived a blameless life, but he was also living all these parallel lives, of which going to swingers club was just one. So that is what a swingers club looks like. The club was shut down in May 2017, but it used to expect up to 100 visitors every weekend.
Hi, Ricky.
Hello,
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Can I come in?
Yes, you're coming.
Thank you. So this would be a club.
For like-minded people to meet other people.
Well, show me where you would hang out then.
He was seen at the Glory Hole a few times. This was built for a bit of fun because swinging parties are not serious.
Right, Donkey Dick's Glory Hole. So I guess.
And the guys will look through the hole, and once they know there's people in there, then they will come up and tie there.
And stick their willy in the hole.
Stick their willy in the hole. And then the fantasy with the guys, whoever's on the other side,
Is they didn't know who was in
they
it.
don't know who's on the other side.
I get it, Ricky.
Right, it's a bit of fun.
So this was something that Emil liked to do, was it?
Yes, he's been seen up there a few times.
So what was he like?
He was a very quiet sort of person, but he had like deep eyes, and he used to scare people because he used to scare people.
So was he aggressive or abusive in any way?
He pushed a girl, and he made her cry, and she was a married lady in her 40s, and her husband had a go at him. You know, you've got to ask. It's not a free for all game. You know what I mean? It's people to meet like-minded people.
Consent.
Yes, of course there is.
Emil was thrown out of the club for breaking rules. What's intriguing is that it's clearly a non-judgmental kind of place, and there are norms of behaviour that have to be observed. And they couldn't accept Emil. He just didn't know how to behave, even in there, where it's kind of no holds barred. And they kicked him out. And what's that saying about him? 5 months after the fall, Victoria was recovering at home. The police still had no forensic evidence to point to Emil's guilt. Until they made a breakthrough.
The gas pipe that was taken out of the cupboards, and he loosened the top nut with the mole grips. They left a specific slip. As a tool is used, it will end up with marks and chinks out of it and things, and they become like fingerprints.
Armed with new evidence, the police brought Emil in for questioning a third time.
When was the last time you used your bucket knives? Can't remember. What was it for?
You just asked me when's the last time I used it, and now you're asking me what it's for. And when I said I can't remember when I last used them, how can I remember what I used them for?
You might not remember when you used them, but what you used them for. That's what I'm asking. We would give him a topic, we'd say, this is what we asked you, this is what you told us, this is the evidence that proves that's a lie, now what do you want to say? So you've got him totally cornered then. This is the step. From April onwards, I can do random and spontaneous. What was the significance of that April in that context?
Random and spontaneous.
She says. What's the big leap in April? What have you promised her? Tell me.
That I would be, I don't know. You're probably going to tell me. I don't know.
They're asking you.
I can't remember. I can't remember.
17 months after Emil had first become the prime suspect, the Crown Prosecution Service finally agreed that the police had enough evidence to charge him with 2 counts of attempted murder. One for the gas leak, and one for the parachute jump.
Today, Emil Cilliers appeared at court, charged with attempted murder.
There was no direct evidence of Emil Cilliers actually tampering with the gas or with the parachute.
This is one of the most unusual murder plots ever heard here at Winchester Crown Court.
This wasn't a case where somebody actually saw him do it.
Securing a conviction wasn't going to be easy. Two years after the catastrophic parachute jump that nearly killed Victoria Cilliers, her husband Emil was in court, accused of her attempted murder.
The 38-year-old army sergeant is accused of tampering with the parachute of his wife.
Victoria Cilliers suffered multiple injuries when her parachute failed to open during a jump at 4,000 feet in Wiltshire in 2015. Emil Cilliers denies all the charges. It was a story I followed from afar. But for DC Maddie Henner, it had become all-consuming. So during the court case, there was a lot of working into the small hours then. And I imagine this was piled high with papers.
Yeah, we worked long and hard. I had 2 quite bad illnesses.
Or because of stress relating to the case?
Definitely. This was a case that needed to be investigated and it needed justice to be done.
How confident were you of a conviction?
I went into the trial thinking probably 70-30 against us.
It's a tricky job. If you can show them some CCTV or some crucial bit of evidence, then they go, well, I understand that, and send them to prison for a long time.
We didn't have him at the gas pipe loosening it. We didn't have him removing the slinks from that parachute. You've no smoking gun.
There's the whole issue of the defendant. Emile Cilliers doesn't have to prove it was someone else who did it. All he has to say is, it isn't me, and members of the jury, can you be sure it was?
Mr. Cilliers' lawyer told the court today that his client will plead not guilty to all the charges.
It would take 7 weeks for the jury to hear all the evidence. What was Emile like in that trial? What's his demeanour?
He always looked immaculate. He always wore a three-piece suit, appeared to not have a care in the world. He sat at the back of the court chewing gum.
He presented as confident, I would say to the point of arrogance, someone who's going to try and bring over that he was a good soldier, a good sportsman, and simply wouldn't have been involved in anything like this.
Stand up every day, strutted around the court, military bearing, shoulders back.
He did not come across as a man who was on trial and could potentially go to prison for a very long time.
He seems to have gone through his life charming people into doing what he wanted them to do. Was he trying to do that with the jury, do you think?
Yes, I think Emile thought he could persuade everybody, including the jury, that it wasn't him.
But despite his bravado during the first week, the prosecution were about to reveal an astonishing new motive for murder.
Emile Cilliers told the court he knew he was in debt, in deep debt.
He had debt from payday loans and other loan companies. And you pay one to pay the second to pay the third.
Throughout his marriage, Emile would make up stories to extract money from Victoria, either to pay off his debts or fund extravagant purchases.
Emile and Victoria having a conversation where his father's ill and needs medical bills paid for.
She's saying, also looking to sell my camera and lenses. My dad's struggling with bills for medical care.
Victoria agrees to give him the money. When we look through the bank statements, there's a transaction for a very expensive fish tank, an aquarium for about £800 within the same sort of month. So it would appear that this money is then being used potentially to pay for a fish tank.
A fish tank for £800?
Yeah. Now, Emile's got a life insurance policy which covers him and Victoria for injury death to £120,000. We suddenly had a very big financial motive. It's extremely unpalatable to think anyone is that calculating. But when you piece the evidence together, I think it's impossible to see any other explanation.
The prosecution also went to painstaking lengths to make sure the jury understood the complex technical details of exactly how Emile had sabotaged Victoria's parachute.
The jury arrived at Netheravon Airfield in a coach with a police escort, along with court officials and lawyers.
12 random people off the street turn up to court. So we've had to teach them what a parachute is. We've had to teach them the parts of the parachute.
Unless you understood how a parachute works, it would be almost impossible to reach a proper conclusion. They did everything but jump.
The team needed to prove that Victoria's parachute rig was sabotaged on the day of the jump, and that Emile was the only person with the opportunity to do it.
Emile had hired a rig for her, at which point his daughter had joined him and said she wanted to go to the toilet. So Emile had the parachute over his shoulder, and he said, "I'll take her to the toilet."
The prosecution hoped this footage, in which police filmed an expert replicating the process of removing the slinks from a parachute, would persuade the jury that Emile could have done the same, under the cover of taking his and Victoria's 2-year-old daughter to the toilet.
Victoria said he had been in there up to 10 minutes. And we've shown that it was possible to tamper with that parachute and the time he was in there.
By the 23rd day of the trial, the prosecution's case was almost complete. Now, to cap it all off, they called their star witness, the intended murder victim herself, Victoria Cilliers. So all that you needed at this point was Victoria to take the stand and give her evidence as she'd given it to you in statements.
It was all there. We had the motive, we had the opportunity, and the means. We all thought we've got a chance here.
I thought, this is a good case. We've done a good job. I took her to court that day. I picked her up at home, drove her in, left a normal chit-chat about the weather and the children.
Today was the chance for Victoria Cillier to give her version of events surrounding the allegations that her husband attempted to murder her.
Got to the underground car park, so she must have through the press. A daunting thing for anybody to give evidence. I just expected to be neutral and tell the truth.
Suddenly, the team's 2 years of hard work were all for nothing.
Today, Mrs. Cilliers said she lied about the amount of time he'd spent in the toilet with her parachute. She said she was angry when she made that statement.
It wasn't as long as she said he was in the toilet.
Mrs. Cillier said she did not always tell the truth and that she probably exaggerated the time to get her own back. Mrs. Cillier said she changed her mind about the reason she cut away the main parachute canopy. I'm embarrassed to say I cut away a good parachute.
And she actually said that she had lied during her interviews. She had fiddled with the gas pipe herself to see if she could do something about it. You must have been stunned by that. Saddened that she was willing to assist this man who had tried to kill her and had been reckless to the lives of their children.
Without Victoria on side, the prosecution's case collapsed.
After more than 4 days of deliberations, the jury told the judge that they were unable to reach a verdict.
What was your reaction when the jury came back as a hung jury?
It was really disheartening. Really disheartening.
On the 23rd of November 2017, Emile Cilliers walked out of Winchester Crown Court, but the police were determined not to let him get away with it.
He hasn't lost it. He hasn't been found not guilty. We got a second chance. But I think it should be run again.
In December 2017, Emile Cilliers was back in barracks after narrowly escaping prosecution for twice attempting to murder his wife. Without Victoria on side, the prosecution's case had collapsed.
He clearly still had a hold on her.
But I believe she just wanted us to send Emile home and let them get on with their lives.
Did you accept that he's guilty?
That's what I'm struggling with massively. I'm still in shock.
The police believed this was a form of mind control, typical in coercive relationships. Victoria declined to take part in this film. Can you see any parallels between hers and your relationship with Emile?
I was under the Emile spell while I was with him, and I believe she still is. You're dealing with a different species of man with him. You have somebody that's that good at lying and charming, because he's so good at what he does, making you feel like you are the only person in the world. You're the most important thing in the world. He promises you the earth.
Prosecutors believed there was an urgent threat that Emile could strike again, so they moved immediately to a second trial.
Where someone is a victim of a grave crime, what the victim may feel about it is a factor that the public interest in these matters being prosecuted is very high.
On the 11th of April this year, Emile Cilliers was brought back to court.
We decided that we were going to lay it on Watts Law.
People had to be seeing what this man really was like and what he was capable of. This is not just a naughty boy, a philanderer, or a pantomime villain. This is someone that's actually far more sinister. Yeah, this is how he took this woman and controlled her until he tried to kill her. And it was as cold as that.
To show how little Emile really cared for Victoria, the prosecution made the decision to present all of Emile's thousands of text messages.
He had several personas, if you like, or several compartments to his life, and he seemed to be able to switch between them.
He'd be texting Vicky about the kids and what's for dinner and picking them up. Texting the sex worker saying he's free for half an hour this afternoon.
He could have these messages running concurrently and not bat an eyelid.
He's going to visit Vicky in hospital in ITU, and he's on websites looking for a prostitute in Southampton.
On his way to see his terribly injured wife?
Yes.
Perhaps the most shocking evidence of Emile's calculating behaviour was the internet search he made shortly before the parachute jump.
Why did he put a wet nurse a day or two before the actual jump, unless he knew something was happening around the corner?
He's searching on for the web for a wet nurse.
He's searching wet nurse.
Because, of course, for Victoria, she just gave birth. The baby was just 5 weeks old. So, if Emile thinks I've been with her for the baby, that's her.
He presented in his three-piece suit in the witness box as someone who was entirely respectable, a deep and caring soldier, interested in high ethics and morals, whereas the absolute opposite was true, that it was a facade and what was underneath was entirely rotten.
After 6 weeks in court, the prosecution finally rested its case. Towards the end of the second trial, did you feel, as I did watching it from a distance, this is a done deal, he's going down?
Never allow yourself to think that. Juries are funny things. You can never guarantee a jury verdict, either guilty or not guilty. They take their own course.
The jury took 3 days to decide Emile's fate.